Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Kenny Coleman. Kenny, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. You are the co-creator of Bourbon Pursuit podcast and Pursuit Spirits, which I have been able to partake in, which is awesome. And I was turned on to you by my wife's cousin, Seth. He said, man, you got to get these guys on the podcast. And so I've been following you for a while and love the juice you guys make, and excited to be with you today, man. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. I guess thank you to Seth as well. Seth must be a very well knowledgeable and probably a really good looking guy to help, push you down our path. So
that's right.
Got to say thank you so much for that and spreading the good gospel.
Yes, absolutely. So before we dive in, Kenny, if you can, I always like to ask this wide open question of what's made you the man you are today. And again, I know that's a big open question. This can go a million different directions, but there's a backstory before Kenny, the Pursuit guy. So if you could share that with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I like to think if there was a moment or something like that that came, and maybe it's like, and my parents were really good growing up. I mean, I didn't come from a very difficult, hard background. It was typical suburban lifestyle growing up. My parents worked really hard for everything that they did. My dad was the first person out of his family to actually graduate from college. My mom never did. And, they always wanted the best for us. They sacrificed. They sent us to the best schools, even though, it's like, we're not going to send them to public school. We're going to send them to private school. We want them to go good schooling and stuff like that. So they really wanted the best for me growing up. And maybe I took that for granted a lot going up because you go to high school, and I went to an all male Catholic high school. You don't think about stuff like that. You're just trying to figure out what's going on with the all girl Catholic school over there. That's sort of like, that's what's
right.
going on in your head over there. They didn't stick me with a bunch of debt going through college. I had some college debt, but, they didn't make me do the whole thing. So they really wanted to set me up for success later on. And when I think about sort of where I'm at in my current life of the drive, determination, trying to be an entrepreneur and trying to make a few businesses very successful, I mean, I kind of look at it as a point where I graduated college. And I came out with a degree. It was actually in decision science and information systems. Some schools called it MIS or management information systems, but it was at University of Kentucky, it wasn't something that was highly sought after, I guess you could say.
Oh,
I think
man. I'm going to be there in about, a week from tomorrow. I'm going to be there. My oldest son's going to go on a campus visit there at UK.
Oh, there you go. Well,
yeah.
Go Wildcats.
That's
right. I love my UK, especially basketball season that we're in and stuff like that.
We're going to the UK Georgia game on Saturday and the Bourbon Trail on Sunday, so it's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be setting yourself up for success there. That's what it is.
Exactly. It's sad that I'm more excited probably about my son's college visit than he is, But anyway, I digress. So sorry.
Yeah.
Graduated UK and here we
graduated from UK. Had a degree, and I didn't like what I was doing. I ended up working for a place that I wasn't very passionate about it. I ended up starting my career. It was all in tech, but I didn't like it. Ended up starting my career all over again in tech, just doing some back-end IT infrastructure type of work. And I was a lone person in a satellite office where all my other coworkers were 2 hours away from me. So I sat there all day, and all I waited for was tickets to come in, and I would just go fix people's emails. And I got to the point where I just broke down. I'm like, this is not fun. Like, I've got to figure out, like, what am I going to do? Because I need to really hunker down and do something. And I took that opportunity because I wasn't very busy. So I took that opportunity to go and study and learn and try to figure out, like, what is this next path in my tech career that I want to go and go for. And I really latched on to networking and got myself a certification that immediately doubled my salary overnight. And when that happened, like it lit something inside of me where I went all in and just different types of technologies. I took a few different pivots, and I just climbed and went from different places, and to the point where, I was 10 years down the road, and now I'm working for one of the largest software and hardware vendors in the globe. And it was just one of those things that there was just a moment in time where I just realized that I needed something to better myself. And now that's kind of translated, because as much as I love my tech career, I don't want to say I'm getting older. I just turned 40, but in tech, that world, it changes so
Right.
fast. And I'm like, I don't know how much longer I want to deal with the rat race, because everything changes every single 2 to 3 years, and you got to stay up on everything that's going on. And I'm looking at it saying, I want to figure out how I can coast, or how can I create another sustainable form of income that I can rely on, that maybe I can manage it. I can run this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that has kind of been the shift in my focus now. So I've taken a lot of the learnings of basically just putting in the effort and the education in the early days, to now putting in the effort and education on how to run and grow and scale a business. And thankfully I've got a good partner to do that as well. But a lot of that, again, it all just kind of culminates together, is kind of where the drive and determination comes from.
So you guys have obviously building something, and it's great, and got a huge following, and you are the official bourbon podcast, which is pretty cool. And then
Self-proclaimed.
So hey, so you got to proclaim something, right?
Yeah.
But so have you kept your day job, and your partner kept his day job?
Yeah, that's the fun / unfortunate part, I guess, of it. My wife likes to remind me every single day how expensive healthcare is. So therefore, I can't make the leap right away.
Yeah.
The podcast is great. We started the podcast back in 2015, and I can go deeper in the story,
Wow.
but it was just an idea.
Sure.
And that kind of really, like, it spun up and it grew, and we built it on something and we were whiskey geeks, but we didn't know how many other whiskey geeks were really out there. And come to find out, there's a lot of them.
us.
Yeah. So, we reached somewhere around 45 to 50,000 unique listeners every single month of the podcast. Last year we almost hit 2 million. The year before that we did 2.2 million. So we're in a really good state of where that is. But when we started the bourbon brand, it was an idea that, this will be fun. We'll just kind of do some one-offs, kind of this little extra side hustle income. And then I started doing all the spreadsheet calculation of the math. And I said, but if we do this, then we could actually have a career. Like, we could quit our jobs and we could just focus just on nothing but bourbon. And so that's what has put us at so far about $7 million in the hole of buying bourbon barrel. We have about 5,000 barrels to our name, but we put ourselves in the hole, and we're doing that because we can see the potential growth in the future of it. And really where you make a lot of your margin is because you put the new make down and you wait, and you're not just buying stuff that's basically already aged and putting in a bottle at a higher price tag, but instead we can drive down our cost of goods, we can drive down the price tag on the shelf, and we can create a better, again, more scalable product.
So that's $7 million you're talking about. So for there's tons of leaders and business people listening to this podcast right now. And so let's walk through that, because I think it's fascinating. So you guys are investing your hard-earned dollars, $7 million, I think was the number you said. And now you've got barrels sitting on shelves somewhere, waiting and aging for when you guys are going to pull them off and bottle them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So Ryan and I, that 7 million, let's kind of back up a little bit. So we have no outside investors. We don't come from money. It's not like we started some tech startup and got bought out for 14 billion and we said, well, let's create a whiskey company. No, I mean, it's a pure passion project. When we started our whiskey brand, we put together $15,000, so $7,500 a piece between me and my partner. And we bought our first 2 barrels, maybe 3 barrels, some glass and some labels, and we put it out there. And to this day, that was 2018. And to this day, we still have not taken a distribution from the company, because every bottle that gets sold and goes out goes right back into building the company and trying to figure out how we can grow and scale this and find different outlets. A few years ago, about 2 years ago, we looked at it and we said, if we're going to grow this into something scalable, we have to really start thinking about how do we put down the whiskey to take care of our future investment. And this is where I'll go in a little bit of a side kind of tangent here, is that inside of the whiskey world, and especially inside of bourbon, there's a huge broker market. So if you wanted to start the Circuit of Success bourbon brand, I could help you do that tomorrow. I can make a few phone calls. We could buy a few barrels of bourbon, get some labels, put in a bottle, put on, try to get out the store shelves, distribution, whatever it is.
Hey,
Now
be
there's
careful what you say, because I've got a little something cooking right back over here.
okay, I could tell you right now, if looking back, I don't know if this was the right move or not. Maybe we should have stayed in bourbon media because, as Ryan says, we're aging faster than whiskey now. But there is some fun to it. Like I said, but the other side of it is, but when you do that, you're paying a premium because you're not waiting for that stuff to age. So therefore, your $4,000 barrel that you're purchasing, your minimum cost on the shelf has to be at least $100 a bottle. There's no way around it. Now, if you're able to get that barrel that you're already buying, say at 4 or 5 years at 4,000, but you buy it today at $750 to $900, and you sit on it and you can wait 4 years, well, of course, your cost of goods is going to go way down, and you're going to be making a lot more margin on the back end of it. So, what we did is we worked with a local bank out of Bardstown, showed them the business plan, showed trajectory, kind of showed them where the current bourbon market is, the bourbon boom, and everything like that we're experiencing. And we are able to do all of our barrels on asset-based loans. It's the same thing as getting a construction loan or a house loan or anything like that. It's an appreciating asset. So even though I buy a barrel today for $800, completely brand new, you wait 6 months, that thing's worth about $1,100, right? And it just keeps climbing up until you hit a peak period of probably around 6 to 7 years old, and it kind of plateaus for a little bit.
Okay. So that's $7 million. And again, using your math here, that $7 million is worth more already than the $7 million just because it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere and it's been aging. So, and I guess the stuff I'm drinking at home that's yours. So is that stuff you sourced at, say, I don't know if we can use names in your world here, but MGP, for example. So I could go buy a barrel at MGP today, like you said, for $700 or $4,000. I put it in a bottle. I could go sell it tomorrow. Is that what you guys have done, or what I'm drinking today, something you bought back in 15, 16, whenever?
Right. So our model and everything that we wanted to do was a lot different. And thank you for bringing this up, because we try to really talk about this, because we try to build what's called a true whiskey company. A lot of people that just go buy whiskey, throw it in a bottle, put it on store shelves, it's a marketing story. That's all you're buying. And there's a ton of whiskey out there that's coming from a bunch of different places, and a lot of consumers just don't know how to read labels. And you get caught up looking at gold foil or fancy bottles, and you're like, oh, wow, what's this? And you try it and you're like, wow, this tastes great. But this also tastes eerily similar to this other bottle I have.
Yeah.
And that's because there's only probably like 5 major players out there that supply all the whiskey for a lot of those source brands. So, and that includes, that's coming from your majors of Jim Beam, Wild Turkey. Like, they have extra stocks, they put it on the open market and people buy it up. So that aside, and you mentioned MGP for other listeners that aren't out there. There's a huge factory in Indiana called Midwest Grain Products, and they make a ton of whiskey for a lot of people in the market. It's good stuff. A lot of people use it, but we looked at it and we said, we don't want to be an MGP company. There's just too much of it out there, and you just become another marketing story of trying to figure out how do you sell your whiskey in a different bottle. So we really took a different route, and we started looking. We said, well, where's the next trend in American whiskey going? Like, what's going to make ourselves separate and different than anybody else out there? And we're really focused on blending. And so our core lineup is called Pursuit United. And the idea behind United is that we blend different distillates from different states, different aging climates, different cooperages, just all these kind of different things together to create our own unique bespoke profile that nobody else can replicate. And so we work with 3 different distilleries for our bourbon. One's actually Bardstown Bourbon Company, which is based out of Bardstown, Kentucky. They make one of our components, of course, our Kentucky Ponent. It's a rye-based bourbon. There's
Can I interrupt real quick? Are they then bottling that and selling it on their own brand, or is this like your own unique barrel that's yours?
Yeah. So when we started working with them, and when we started doing all this at the very beginning back in 2018, we could only get whiskey from these companies that was already 4 years old. We couldn't go back, and we couldn't wait 4 years for our stuff to come of age. And to be fair, as I'd mentioned, I work in tech. Ryan, who's my business partner, he owns a few different other companies, mostly in lawn fertilization and treatment, stuff like that. We're not starting our careers over to go learn how much percentage of corn we need to figure out in rye.
Let the experts handle that one.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at like minute differences when it comes to there, because we really feel that a lot of the flavor in the whiskey is all going to be coming from the maturation and the aging side of it. So the barrels you select, the blending capabilities, the finishing process, like all that really contributes a lot to the final product, not as much as graining, mashing, distilling, and watching it all go through a big copper tube. So that's kind of our ethos and thought on it. But
okay, so you have them in Bardstown. You've got 2 others.
Yeah. So, and then about 30 miles south of Nashville, there's this other distillery that we can't name, but it's not George Dickel. So people always think in Tennessee, like, oh, it's got to be Dickel bourbon.
Yeah.
It's not Dickel bourbon, but they make an amazing other bourbon for us. It's an 80-10-10, 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley. And it's actual Tennessee bourbon. It doesn't go through the Lincoln County process. And if anybody else is listening to this, like, what the heck's this? Google it. You'll learn. That's what makes Jack Daniels, and all this other kind of stuff. And then the third component is actually a wheated bourbon coming from Finger Lakes Distilling up in New York. And that is a true craft distillery. They make an amazing product. We always say that if they were based in Kentucky, they'd probably be bigger than Willet, but people put their blinders on and they're like, New York bourbon, I'm not drinking that, blah, blah, blah. But
Widow Jane, some good stuff.
Yeah. But here's the other thing. Widow Jane, all sourced. Like they don't really use a lot of their own stuff, right? They really they really focus on their New York water, right? I mean, of course, New York is really proud about their water and everything like that. But a lot of their stuff it's all coming from stocks of Heaven Hill, Barton, and everything like that. So it's not a whole lot of their own. Again, see, I know way too much, right? Too much
I
dirt
love this. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about, man. Our bourbon fans are going to love this.
Yeah. Anyway, we really focus on those 3 distilleries. They made some of the stuff early on for us that, or should I say, they already had it made. We blended into our own specific flavor profile, but now we're here a couple years down the line and we've started going back and we've started making adjustments. So like at Bardstown Bourbon Company, we're not putting it in your traditional, just all char number 3. We've instead moved to the industry standard is around 6 months of air-dried stave seasoning, which is you essentially let the wood sit outside. So it reduces the moisture content, gets rid of a lot of tannins and everything like that. So we went from the industry standard of 6 months and moved to our new, what's called Cooper Selective 18-month air-dried stave barrels. We've also moved about 50% of our barrels into Char 1, and that's because of the relationship that we have with Independent Stave, who's one of the largest cooperages and barrel manufacturers that's out there. And they have a lot of data points. Again, coming back to me and my tech side, they have a lot of data points that actually show that a Char 1 whiskey actually produces, or a Char 1 barrel produces a better whiskey at a younger age than Char 3 and Char 4. But I didn't want to hedge all my bets there. So we do about half in Char 1, sprinkle some 2s and 3s, and we do the rest in Char 4. But, awesome. Like I said, we go back to all these different distilleries and we were starting to make these kind of like minor changes because we really want to dial it in. So right now our product is a blend of 4 to 6-year-old bourbons, and fast forward to about 2028, 2029, it should be about 6 years completely in the blend. We were able, and this goes back into the business portion side of things. When we created our first product, we started with a 10-barrel blend. We made about 2,000 bottles. We put that out there, sold out in about 30 days. And we said, I think we're on to something. And that's when we said, well, let's go ahead. We'll go buy 4, 3, 2, 1 and put new make contracts down at all these different distilleries so we can really kind of like we have a future. And the reason we did that is because the problem with the source market that we talked about earlier is that even though you have brands that today they've got a 10-year-old, tomorrow they got a 4-year-old, maybe it's from Indiana, maybe it's from Kentucky, maybe it's from Georgia, who knows? You don't know where your next lunch is going to come from. And so you're always chasing to try to figure out, well, who am I going to outbid for these barrels so I can have another bottling run? We didn't want to do that. We said, let's play and let's own our destiny and actually put down the whiskey. So years from now, we have we're not constantly just chasing our tail around trying to figure out where the whiskey's going to come from.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's a cool side of the story I didn't know about. So I want to talk about 4 things that, again, there's business people listening to this, and this could be the work that they're in. They'll be in there forever, or there's a person, exercising right now or driving down the road, and they're thinking about this idea, right? You guys had an idea, and I think the idea came from you used to bring homemade mint julep to your partner's house or something. You guys met through your wife. And so I want to talk about the idea, then the creation, then the execution, and now the passion, right? And in my mind, that's where doing the research, I thought about that: idea, creation, execution, and passion. And I think about that for me, for Visionary Wealth Advisors. 10 years ago almost, we started this firm from scratch, and it started with an idea. It came with creation of the firm. It started with executing, because now I got to show up to work every day, right? And then now you got to have
Yeah.
your passion and your vision and the work to go out and do it. So walk me through that first, the idea. Where'd it come from?
Yeah, this was, I'm always going to hand it over to Ryan. This was Ryan's idea, was the podcast. And that's the origin story of all this. So Ryan is from Bardstown, the bourbon capital of the world. And as I mentioned before, he has a different job outside of this, that he owns a different company that focuses on weed fertilization, lawn care, control, everything like that. His business is not very busy, and it's really hot or really cold out. So he needs something to do. And his job, he was in a truck. He was listening to podcasts all day, just going between job sites. And he said, I'm just going to start a podcast. And he was originally going to do it on his industry, because that's what he knew about. He could talk about the different types of treatments, but I think he realized that it really wasn't going to be something big. And, he has a good idea, and then execution is probably where he falls a little flat. But he knew that he was really into bourbon. His brother is, I'm not going to drop, but he works for a very large distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky, and is one of their main buyers for all their glass and packaging and all this other kind of stuff. Yep. And he goes, Ryan, you're from Bardstown. Why don't you do a bourbon podcast? And he knew me again through our wives. And he said, what do you think about this? And I said, well, give me a week to do some research and see what I can find. Because I'm a pessimist. I truly am. I was like, I'm one of those people
that
all
over this parade you got. Dude.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I'll piss in your Cheerios kind of person.
Exactly.
Because I said, it's like every good idea is already taken. So why is this one any better? And I spent some time and I looked at the realm of podcasting, and I was just trying to figure out, well, what are people doing in the world of whiskey out here? And there was really only one that stood out. A lot of them were a bunch of guys sitting around a microphone, sniffing Elmer Tea Lee, going, it smells like caramel and vanilla. I'm like, why would I ever want to listen to something like this?
Yeah.
The other one was Whiskey Cast. Mark Gillespie does a great job. It's all B2B focused, and it's very much in the industry, but it's the whole world of whiskey, not just bourbon. It's Scotch and Japanese and everything like that. And I said, really what's missing here is an opportunity to storytell. How do we get the people from inside the industry to share their stories and their passion and have people connect with those brands? And so we really went the interview route and trying to figure out, well, how do we get people to understand, you see the red dripping wax and maker's mark, but do you know what it took to actually take that business from crumbling at one point? So bringing Bill Samuels Jr. on the show and have him tell his stories about, how he hit the road and how he did all these other kind of things to actually revive the brand to not be bankrupt. I mean, those are like the stories that we've been able to capture over time. And it's been a really good recipe for success. And that kind of just goes into the execution. Is like, now we get to the point where we made those introductions. We got those people on. We have had some of those influential and the biggest names inside of whiskey on the show. And I love it because we've been able to, like, there's people that have passed now and they're no longer with us. And we have recorded long form content of them telling their story of what they did in their career.
Generation after generation.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. We've had other family members reach out and they're like, "Hey, can I get a copy of that?" And I'm like, "Absolutely! Like, here you go." So, there's fun things like that we're happy to do. But like I said, that was really the thing. Is like we executed on it. We had kind of talked about a little bit beforehand. We got to the point where we thought we were going to give up because you don't get the ROI. You hit burnout, and you're like, "I'm spending 20 extra hours a week on this. Like I'm finding the people. I'm trying to build logistics. I'm driving around all around middle of Kentucky, setting up my microphone because back then we would take all of our studio on the go. Yeah. You gotta understand, like when we all started this, there wasn't a whole lot of good online recording platforms. And inside the world of whiskey, all these master distillers, they're not younger than 40. Okay. So trying to get them in front of a microphone is a very, very difficult thing, especially to make it sound good.
Well, it's funny, sorry to interrupt, but I just, one of those on Facebook just popped up from, 6 or 7 years ago, and it was the video, and I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. I'm like, I actually put this out on Facebook, how bad it was. But they didn't have anything when we were starting the podcast stuff. So it's come a long way, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
So the idea happens. So you guys are going to start a podcast. You did your research, and now we start to have the creation of it.
Yeah. And so the creation of it, I mean, we had, and just to kind of talk about podcasting and strategies and stuff like this, we were very smart about it. Looking back, now that I think about it, we recorded 10 episodes before we ever went live with it. Yeah. And we batched them all, and we released 3 or 4 of them on the first day. But the smartest thing we ever did is episode 3, or maybe it was episode 7. I can't remember which one it was. But in the very, very beginning, we brought on the biggest bourbon blogger at the time to be on the show. So within the first week, we had his entire email list sent out of our podcast to 100,000 people. So on day 1, we were able to kind of really like enter in and kind of like really establish a foothold. And we were early on. I mean, that was the great thing. We were so early that we could call up Buffalo Trace and we could say, hey, we'd love to have Harlan Wheatley, your master distiller, on the show. And they go, what's a podcast? Like nowadays you call them up, they're like, I'm sorry, like everybody's too busy for you. We can't do this and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But that's how it was back then. And we had a lot of early access. We made some of those initial contacts. And thankfully, through the podcast, we've nurtured those relationships. And so we can have those people come on and they take our call seriously. They know where we started from, where it was really Ryan and I, it was us traveling around with his laptop and a Blue Yeti microphone connected to it. And we'd all huddle around it. Yeah. It's like the first 100 episodes, like I just cringe of how bad the audio is.
Right.
Considering now we all have like broadcast level equipment.
Yeah.
It's like, if I could ever go back on the execution side of things, I would invest heavily in the equipment up front instead of just putting out a pilot and see what happens.
Yeah.
But we all live and learn.
But you look at, your mic, my mic, same mics. You're not going to spend $500 on a microphone for each of you. So now you're $1,000 in and you haven't even done anything yet,
Yeah. And to just see if this idea of a winter project will be dead in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. It's not happening. So then creation, man, you start calling people, you're doing the interviews, you don't even know where to upload it and all that stuff. But how do you execute and now get it to where you've gotten it today? Like that's the part I love, is that execution strategy, that building strategy to where, hey, this little podcast now is we're $7 million of barrels of bourbon sitting around, and man, you have a massive vision, right? So that's the cool part. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, on the execution side of things, at least with the podcast, it's been continual evolvement. I mean, you always see the diagrams of like, design, think, and then like redesign and kind of, you just kind of like re-go through the circle. That's essentially what the podcast has done. Over time, we've finessed our interview skills. We've gotten so much better. The equipment's gotten a lot better, to the point now where a lot of the stuff is even automated on the back end. We outsource some stuff for the production side of things. But even like when we get the final product in, I've built in these publishing pipelines that I just put it in there. And then all of a sudden it ends up on WordPress and Instagram and our publishing site. And then it automatically puts in ad markers of where the ads need to go. And it's just a well-oiled machine. And that's been over just years of iterations and just trying to find out what's the best way to execute and do things. I mean, I learned probably some of the best stuff a couple years ago. I went to this other conference called Podcast Movement. And when I was there, I got to end up networking with a lot of other podcasters. And it was kind of like an aha moment when I realized that my podcast was probably in like the top 2% of everybody, and that was in the room. But because people that, they have a small audience, but I had no idea that an audience of having, when you do $180,000 a month, I had no idea, like you're in the top 10% of all podcasts. And when I found that out, I was like, holy smokes. I mean, I'm no Joe Rogan by any means,
right.
But the pool it's not massive, but it just goes to show it's like, wow, we've really found a niche and we owned it. And I think that's one of the things that when people come and they ask me for advice on starting something, especially on a podcast, I was like, just don't go wide. Like, as much as we all love Joe Rogan or you hate Joe Rogan or whatever, it's like, you're never going to be him. Doesn't matter how hard you try. You're not going to be Barstool. You're just not going to be it. So find a niche and own it. Like Gary Vee always says, you can make $100,000 a year talking about peanut butter, but if you go deep, you're going to find other people that like care that much about peanut
really
butter
care
and you
about
can
peanut
monetize.
butter.
Yeah. So anyway, that was, like I said, the podcast, it's just been continually growing and finding the right ways, and whether it's advertising, whether it's trying to build it, listener funded things like through Patreon. We ended up making a lot of good growth by creating our own barrel pick club at one point when barrel picks, it was the hottest thing. You couldn't, nobody's getting Pappy anymore. So what's the next best thing? You get a single barrel that, your favorite podcasts or the people that that you listen to all the time, they selected this bottle and you can kind of get access to it. So we started our own club, grew that to about 1,500 members at one point. And it was just, we just saw that as a real good way for growth, especially getting over the hump of we're never making any money in this thing, because brands aren't beating down your door to go and sponsor the podcast. Years ago, it's getting better, but years ago, they'd rather buy a bus stop ad than sponsor a podcast.
Yep.
Go figure. But and then, like I said, the podcast was one thing, and it felt like it would have been a natural extension to create our own whiskey brand, but it was never in the cards. Like, we never thought that that's what we should do. Thankfully, we've been a little bit on the forefront of everything. I mean, we were the first ones to really build a big audience and really kind of be the first ones in a podcasting world with whiskey, and especially with bourbon. Now there's a lot of other ones out there. I won't call them copycats, but a lot of us took our format and ran with it, and that's fine. There's more stories than we could ever get to. We created the first ever national kind of barrel pick club that all came together, and I did all the legwork to find the retailers that would ship and give us allocation, and we would take people. We did hundreds of these. We took people to Four Roses and Jim Beam and Willett and all these different distilleries, and we let them pick barrels with us. Like, we made our supporters a part of the process. And then after that, we didn't really think of like, well, what's next? It kind of just fell in our lap, to be honest with you. We talked about this brand on the podcast that was creating their own, or it was actually this liquor store that was creating their own in-house brand. And we said, this is cool, but this is nothing that's earth-shattering or groundbreaking, because pre-prohibition, before America took away all the whiskey, doctors, pharmacies, grocery store chains, they all had their own private label whiskey that they would sell. And that's what we kind of talked about it on an episode. Didn't think anything of it. And about 2.5 weeks later, I get this phone call, and this guy goes, "Hey, I helped build that brand. Would you be interested in starting your own?" So that kind of kicked it off, and we said, well, teach us, like, show us, like, what are you thinking? And that's when we ended up starting our first product line, which was called Pursuit Series, which was cask strength single barrels, which is pretty much what we were talking about earlier, of like sourced whiskey in a different bottle. But we felt really confident of picking single barrels, and he gave us a very raw and like unique deal that nobody else gets to do in the industry, where he would lay out 40 to 60 barrels for us, and he'd go choose which ones you want. That doesn't work in the sourced whiskey world. You say, oh, this one tastes good, I'm going to write a check for $100,000, and whatever shows up, shows up. And if you don't know anything about whiskey and about bourbon, everyone's a snowflake. You're going to have some that are amazing. You're going to have some that are crap, and most of them are going to be in the middle. But we got to choose all the amazing ones every single time. So that was the kind of the lucky break that we got. But again, that was just one of the things that we took that money, we dumped it back on the company. We just bought more barrels with it. We didn't take distributions. We didn't go buy anything. We're still driving the same cars that we've always had and whatnot. But then there was a breaking point where our person who was bottling for us, or who was our broker, he goes, guys, these, and by the way, as a whiskey geek, the term single barrel, right? It's like, it makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. You're like, oh, right. You're speaking my language.
Yeah.
But from it, as somebody that, let's talk about business and everything, as you want to get operational and you want to streamline things, single barrels are not optimized for success, right? I mean, it is something where there's a lot of manual labor. You have to change out lines. You've got to get new labels every single time.
Yeah.
So it's a true pain in the rear end. I'm just trying to be clean here. of what it is to actually put out a single barrel product. And it's just not scalable. Like, you can't do anything with it. And so that's when we really kind of took a step back. And as I mentioned before, we kind of looked at the next phase in American whiskey. And that's when we focused on blending. And that's where we came out with Pursuit United. And that's what's now on store shelves across 9 states.
That's amazing, man. I'm giving you a big clap here. That's awesome. I love seeing people start something with an idea, create it, execute it, and now the passion. You can see it, you can feel it in your voice and your energy, and it's awesome, man. We'll be watching definitely for a long time. So where do you see the industry going? You know, it's crazy to think that I just got into bourbon. It'll be 2 years and about 3 months ago. I went to my buddy's Steve's 50th birthday party. His wife surprised him with a guy to come do a whiskey tasting event, right? And so we do it, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. It all tastes the same. It all burns. You know, you get any beer, you know? And then, but I would listen to this guy, Pops, and Pops was talking, and he was just passionate, and he loved it. And then with my personality, I love the chase, right? I love finding that you walk in that store and, oh, it's like there's a bright light on that bottle that you never see, right? And so I fell in love with the bourbon chase and the bourbon and now the taste and all the stuff and the story behind it. And I think it's amazing. But like, I was buying bottles at $60 that are now, you know, $300 or $250. Like, where do you see the industry going? Where do you see prices going? It's crazy.
It's like a drug. You got your first hit, didn't you?
Exactly. I got my first hit and I can't get enough.
And when you say Pops, I think you're talking about Garrett over from Bourbon and Banter. Is that?
Oh yeah,
who did the presentation? You know him? Yeah. He's a good friend. Oh, he's great.
Awesome. Yeah, he's here in St. Louis, so he did the party. That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, see how small the whiskey world is. We all kind of know each other. Yeah. Where's the whiskey world? Where's bourbon going to go? So, from a financial standpoint, you know, I get a lot of newsletters. I get sort of like where like spirits growth, beer, wine, everything like that through a bunch of different reports. So 2023 year just came as one of the most down years since 1990 in the alcohol market. And the outlook was pretty bad. And like 2022 was insane. Like people in 2020 to 2022, people were pantry buying. They were just going crazy. You're at home. You have a lot of discretionary funds. And so therefore you're spending it on, of course, high-aged whiskey, tequilas, everything like that. The seltzer boom took off. All things just kind of collided at once. And there was just a huge thirst that's out there. Well, the amount of people that were out buying bottles and just going crazy and buying stuff, a lot of people took a step back this year and they said, all right, I've got 50 bottles. I've got 150 bottles. Maybe I've got 500 bottles, whatever it is. People are going, why do I need all this? I've got more whiskey than I need in a lifetime. And so a lot of buying really halted around July, August of last year. And you saw a lot of stocks start tanking. I mean, a lot of the big ones, your Constellation, your Diageo, your Brown-Forman. I mean, everybody was down last year, anywhere between 7 to 15%. Wow. And yeah, so we're coming off one of the worst years of spirits production and spirits in general. Now, on the production side, it's kind of weird because you see a lot of companies that are doubling down. I mean, during those years, they couldn't put out enough whiskey. And now everybody's looking and going, oh, crap, now we have too much. So I don't want to say the ugly G word is coming, that the glut is on the way, but you've got every major distillery made tens of $million investments and improvements into their distilleries over the past couple of years, and they're just now getting ready to come online. You have investors that did the same exact thing. So a couple of years ago, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, you had a lot of people that were just, again, you had a bunch of money. You weren't going to buy houses with it. What else can you put your money in? You saw the whiskey market where it was going. And so a lot of people bought new make barrels. And so you have hedge funds and investors that just bought, they own hundreds of thousands of barrels without any brand or outlet of where it's going to go. And they want to go and put it on the open market, as we kind of talked about before. However, that open market, a lot of people there, they're not buying. And so you kind of have this squeeze of who's going to fold first. Are they going to drop their prices because they thought that they were going to get $5,000 for 4-year Kentucky? and now like it's starting to creep below 4,000. And so everybody's just kind of see who's going to fold first in that realm. On the sales side of things, I mean, it's so funny. Like as a whiskey geek, I mean, I'm in all the forums and stuff like that, and people will go to a liquor store and be like, "There's no good whiskey here." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, look at the shelves. Like, the shelves are littered with bourbon." I would venture to say that we are living in the golden age where you have more choices of bourbon than you would have had at any point in history. And to say that you would go there and say, "Well, I don't find anything." Oh, it's because I can't find Eagle Rare. I can't find Blanton's. Like, get over yourself. Okay. There's so much whiskey that's out there, and everybody gets kind of hyper focused on just like 5 or 6 labels. And that's one of the things that like, I want to see that change for the broader consumer market, is to just like, you've got to expand your horizons. There's more than one distillery out there that makes really good whiskey. And then the other thing is, a lot of these distilleries, they are putting down a crap ton of bourbon. And a lot of people kind of said, well, yeah, of course they're going to go for the international market. And I'm kind of bearish on it a little bit, honest with you, because believe me, I will go ahead, let Brown-Forman, Buffalo Trace, all them, they let them go tackle and try to turn India into a bourbon drinking country. I don't see it ever happening. By the way, if you look at the data and the stats, India drinks almost 4 or 5 times the amount of whiskey than the United States, right? So there is
you're saying
they do. They drink a ton, right? And so it's like, if you think you could turn 1 in every 10 whiskey drinkers in India to bourbon drinkers, it would probably deplete all the stocks that are in the United States right now. But that is a cultural shift. That is something that would take decades to make it happen. So like I said, I'm a little like, I don't see that happening right away. I'm kind of putting that one on the far distant side of things. But that's sort of like where I see the current market of whiskey right now. We're coming off a really bad year. They're still really good. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. So tourism is still very high. That's still the number one thing. People are still coming here to come and visit. Distilleries are starting to get caught up on stocks once again. So you can go and you can visit places and you can find stuff here that you can't get back home. And so there's a lot of good things that are just happening from the tourism aspect. And, we'll kind of see what 24 brings into it. I don't think we're going to get to the heights that we were in 21 and 22. But that's just because people bought so much. So as soon as they start going through the bottles that they did purchase, then they'll start venturing out and finding new things.
Yeah. And I mean, wasn't it Buffalo Trace? Didn't they put like $1 billion into their distillery?
Yeah. And to be fair, Buffalo Trace, they're doing fine. I'm not worried about them.
Right.
They're the ones that I don't worry about, because like I said, when you talk about the 5 or 6 brands that people just get hyper focused on, like
it's everyone,
it all comes from them. And I don't be wrong, they make good whiskey. Is it some of the best whiskey that's out there that cannot be touched by anybody else? No. Like there's so much other stuff. And that's why, if you're one of those people that you're thinking like, well, I drink Weller all the time, or I only buy Eagle Rare, like, I've got the special bottle of Blanton's, please go and find somebody else that's also into whiskey and get that bottle and get 4 or 5 other ones and blind taste them and figure out if you can figure out which one is your favorite, or if you can figure out which one is Blanton's or whatever it is. I can guarantee you're going to come at the end and go, I like it as much as I thought I did.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast, but we had my wife's family Christmas at my house. And so I put everybody in a room, the bourbon, there was, 6 or 7 bourbon drinkers, and I put 3 bourbons. I put one of yours. I'm drawing a blank. I forget which one it was. I apologize. It's getting a little bluish on the label.
Our oak collection bourbon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
so
exactly
I
what you're
put
talking
that,
about.
and then I put Heaven Hill, and then I put Buffalo Trace. And those were the 3. You know which one won? Yours.
Oh, please tell me Mies. Really? How about
you did? You did. It was awesome. So anyway, last few questions here. But my cousin Seth, again, who introduced this to us, he wanted to know. See what do you say here? How do you influence the flavor profile of your barrels or batches? So say you wanted more of like a fruit forward flavor. Like, how do you do that? What do you do? What's that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Ryan is our blender, and he's got, and I run a lot of spreadsheets, but I've learned a few things from him too. And so I'm also the last line of defense. So I make sure that I keep him in check. I taste everything, and I'll tell him if something's not good enough, or he's got to go back to the drawing board on his blends.
Yeah.
But he's got really 4 key characteristics that we try to hit in every single whiskey, and try to kind of guide him in a certain direction. And kind of these are the flavor profiles that people align with: spice, fruit, sweet, and oak, right?
Okay.
So we want to make sure we have a perfect balance of all those in there. And then we've also started doing smaller micro blends where it's just like hyper focused on one of those particular aspects. But, one of the things that we have to do, since we are so small, is that we taste every single barrel that goes into a blend. You can't say that for all of the big distilleries out there, because what they'll do is they'll pull a sample from one part of the rick house for stuff that's been aging next to each other, and they'll just toss 200 barrels together and just go ahead and dump the lot in there, because you can basically average out all the flavor that you're going to get, and you can kind of get a pretty good instance of what it's going to be. But we hand select every single barrel that's going to go into our blend, so we know really where it's going to align. And so it's a much more time and labor intensive process that does go into it. And we just want to find the barrels that do match the profiles that we want to make sure that we put out there to market.
Awesome. I like that. So here's his other question, and I'm going to say this because of his question. I'll say he's my 7th favorite cousin on my wife's side. Okay, he's my 7th favorite cousin on my wife's side. But he said the other question. Exactly. He goes, they call me Bert for fun, and he goes, why in the hell did this guy come on Bert's podcast? That was his question to you. Why did you come on my podcast today?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think we have a very interesting story. I think we have a unique story. I don't think anybody has one that's remotely close to us when it comes to talking about bourbon. And we're in a position where I love to do this because I'm always the one asking the questions. I'm never the one answering the questions.
Yeah.
And so it is fun to be on the other side of the microphone and tell our story. And plus, it's like, if this helps influence one person to go out there and try our bottles and realize, like, oh crap, what have I been missing? That's a home run for me. And so, like I said, and thank you for letting me use your platform to do that as well. I mean, that's one of the things. We're a small startup. You got to focus on how can you be nimble and budget friendly, and trying to figure out how can you do better marketing.
Yep, that's right. And then I guess he did have one more. He's got a bottle that looks like it's signed. Did you actually go in and sign that, do you think? Or is that like laser printed somewhere?
Oh, no, we sign bottles. So depending on where they were in the markets.
He's in Chicago.
Yeah, so it was probably a Benny's then.
Okay.
Yeah, there is. Every once in a while, I'll make it to Chicago. We do what's called market visits. I wouldn't say quite often, but a couple times a year, we'll fly to Texas or Colorado or something like that, and you'll go to a liquor store and you'll meet some people and sign bottles, but you'll want to sign the rest of the bottles that are there on the shelf, because some people will see them and they're like, oh, a signed bottle, I'll purchase that one, and hence the reason.
Well, that's cool. He got lucky then.
Yeah.
All right, so these are the 4 questions I'm going to ask that you can't use your own bourbon as the answer. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Your daily sipper.
See, now this is where we get into those questions that, I'm spoiled. I am beyond spoiled. If I could turn my camera around right now, I'd show you. We just got our office area and podcast studio cleaned up like 2 days ago. And so there's bottles everywhere. We are in a fortunate position where distilleries send us everything that they come out with, and we have an opportunity to try everything. Yeah. And now I've got bottles everywhere, but I know what my flavor, like I know what I want. So every single day I'll go to my basement bar and I'll be like, do I want something sweet? Do I want something spicy? Do I want something weeded? Do I want it fruity? Do I want something that's, tannic? It's got some oak, it's got some age and some character into it. And so I've really dialed in really what I like. And so instead of like figuring out a brand that I just align with, instead I know what my palate wants. And so it might be a bottle of Buffalo Trace. It might be a bottle of Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. It might be any of the number of bottles that are sitting down there. It might be a good quality sourced MGP bourbon that I'm just in the mood for because I want something
Yeah.
spicy, right? Spicy, barrel proof, something with a kick. Those are those things that I continue to think about as I continue to go on my bourbon journey and figure out which bourbons are speaking to me. But I've gotten to the point where I've dialed it in. I just kind of know what I want. So and then if your next question is, well, what's your favorite bourbon? That's gonna be my other answer. It's like you just kind of know what you want on that day.
I was gonna say, what's the daily sipper, the go-to for a special occasion, and then the one you get really excited about, like, or if I came to your house, you're like, that's your trophy bourbon right there. Do you have a trophy bourbon?
Well, I'll give you a couple of those answers. So another one that people always ask me to, they're always like, I'm just getting a bourbon. Like, which one should I try? What should I go for? And I will always say I have never in my life had a bad Four Roses. So Four Roses small batch, I will always go ahead and promote that. I think they have an amazing product. Of course, the Old Forester 1920, 1910 line. Those are great ones to have in your arsenal as well. Now, when you talk about trophy bottles, this is again where it gets a little. I think I have a college tuition or maybe a year's worth in my basement of I mean, I was lucky. I got into it like 2013 timeframe, 2014, and the bug bit me, and I was just buying all kinds of stuff. Back then, I was buying more stuff then than I can drink now, and before I could drink then. And so I've got stuff. I've got bottles that are worth $10,000 a piece, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to open them.
Yeah.
That being said, I think I will find an opportunity to open them one of these days because we are, and now that I'll go ahead and pitch this too. So we'll be opening up our own location on Whiskey Row in downtown Louisville in September of this year.
Congrats, man.
Yeah. So the next kind of big venture that we're going on, it's like if we can't figure out the solution, we'll just keep throwing money at the problem. And that's sort of the thing. It's like, it'll fine. It'll all work out.
So what will that be? So when I go to that, say September timeframe, what will that look like?
Yeah, so we're gonna have it's gonna be our whole visitor experience. It'll be on Whiskey Row. We'll actually be relocated right next door to Bardstown Bourbon Company, catty corner to Michter's, down over there, the 700 block. But you'll walk in, you'll have your traditional bottle shop retail sort of thing, but then you'll go around a corner and we'll have what's called the whole shebang, where you'll be able to do a tasting plus barrel pick and fill your own bottle experience. And this is something that we have been doing here at the distillery for a while. And it's modeled after the hundreds of barrel picks that we've done. As a general consumer, you don't get access to do something like that. Unless you're part of a whiskey society or you own a liquor store or you own a restaurant or bar, you don't get the opportunity to go pick a barrel. And we wanted to give that opportunity to a lot of people. And so we'll have around 6 barrels and you'll have all the samples laid out there for you, and you'll taste through, you kind of go through your own barrel pick process and figure out which one speaks to you. You don't have to have the fiduciary requirement of actually buying the entire barrel, but instead you get to go and get one bottle from it. But instead of taking that bottle and, pulling a lever and having it fill up, instead you actually grab a whiskey thief and you thief it directly from the barrel, fill your bottle up, and then you go to the bottling line, cap it, label it, and then you'll kind of put a signature on it, filled by this person on this date, and this was your occasion, and so on and so forth.
That's awesome. What a cool experience, man. Very, very cool. So ice, no ice?
Oh, no ice. Very rare do I put ice in my whiskey nowadays.
Okay.
Now, I will say that I am a huge cocktail person, and so depending on how it comes out, whether it's dried or frothed or has a cube or whatnot, like I'm okay there. But for whiskey nowadays, it's crazy. It's like you go through the evolution of a bourbon drinker, and you start off with an 80 proof, and you're like, oh, I need to mix this with Coke. Like, there's no way I'm drinking this.
Oh, it's like burning my esophagus.
Yeah. And then you remove the Coke, and then you're just drinking with ice, and then you remove the ice, then you're drinking it neat, and then all of a sudden you're drinking like 140 proof bourbon. You're going, it's not too bad. So
it needs a little more kick to it, but it's fine.
Doesn't even phase you anymore.
That's funny. So I'm in that phase of I still will use a big ice block, but I can do it without the ice. So if I do that, I still will find like the littlest piece of ice. I don't know what it is. So I'm there, but I've graduated to the big boy world now, to where I can drink some rye. So I used to think rye was disgusting, a year and a half ago, and now I'm like, this isn't too bad. I'm getting to the big boy bourbons now. So. Great stuff, man. Well, this has been awesome, Kenny. Thanks so much for joining me on the Circuit of Success. What a great story. Hats off to you and your partner, man. It's awesome. We'll continue watching. Everything will be in the show notes we talked about, and we'll come see you in September, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Please do. Like I said, thank you again for letting me use your platform to find an audience and new listeners. And again, just I don't take it lightly. It's fun to be able to do this. We talked about it before the show. I always give a nod to other podcasters out there because nobody understands how hard it is to do this and the work and the effort that goes in our conversation. This was the easiest part of the entire process. Like now comes the hard part of post-production and marketing and getting it out there and all that sort of stuff too. So keep doing what you're doing as well, because I know that people do enjoy it. And it's always one of those things that you always think, what's the point? And then you get that one review or that one 5-star review and you're like, all right, cool. People are listening.
It all worth it.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time, Kenny.
Thank you so much.